So now the next phase comes into play, and that is deepening a relationship with them. So we're going to go over just a few things you want to think about when you're deepening the relationship. So you got them on your list. You've given what it is they signed up for. You know something about their motivations and their problems, because if they didn't have a problem with improving their conversions, they would have never opted in for your improving conversions cheat sheet. You have some idea about who they are based on your avatar. So now you want to start sharing information with them. And one way to do that is what we would call an indoctrination sequence. So it would be a series of emails that they might receive over the first few days or week, which are intended to deepen the relationship with the person on the list before they start getting your regular mails. The first email in that is usually an introduction email, and it might be a welcome from Matthew message in my case, and might be what subject line says. Better to make it personal and use your own name in here, because you're probably trying to develop a one-on-one relationship with them as you as a person. And what you want to do in that email is you want to tell them a little bit about your story, because it's important when you're building a relationship to share some personal details. You can't have a relationship with somebody who you know nothing about. So you need to let them know a little bit about you. Where do you live? What did you do before you started running this business? What are some of the credentials that you might have that would make them trust you more, but without sounding like you're bragging or just listing out credentials? So work them into the conversation like you would if you were talking to someone. You're introducing yourself, and then tell them what it is you're going to do for them, what the benefit of staying on your list is going to provide to them, all the value you're going to do to help them with improving their conversions in the case of our example. Then what you want to do after that first email is you want to focus on adding value for them. And this is a problem a lot of people make with audiences, and we'll talk a little more about it later. And that is, they focus on what the audience can do for the influencer rather than focusing on the value that you add to the audience. And if you've ever had a friend who was totally focused on what they could get from you and not returning that favor, you probably weren't friends with them for very long or had a very deep friendship. You didn't have much of a relationship because it was one-sided, because all they talked about is what you can do for me and never added value back into the relationship. You don't want to be that person in your relationship with your email list. You want to be the person who is giving more than they're asking in return. Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about it he has a book that was published a few years ago called Jab, 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 Right Hook. What he's referring to in that title of the book and that analogy is the jabs are when you're adding value. You're adding value over and over and over again. Jab, 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 add value, add value, add value. Then right hook. And the right hook is when you ask them to do something for you. But initially, when people first sign up, you want it to be mostly about them, almost entirely about them. And the reason for that is a concept that Dean Jackson talks about. What you want to do is you want to hide your whiskers. He calls this concept cheese and whiskers. And he says, your prospect is like a mouse, and all that a mouse cares about is how to get cheese and avoid cats. And your prospect is the same way. They want the benefit, but they want to avoid being sold. People love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And who do they get sold by? A salesperson. Who does a mouse get attacked by? A cat. When you start to communicate with your list in a way which is indicating to them that you're a salesperson, then it's like a cat showing its whiskers. You come out and you're saying to them, ultimately, I want to sell you something. And they already kind of know that in the back of their mind, but you want to try to get them to forget it. You want to try to get them convinced that you're mostly about helping them. You'll probably try to sell some stuff later, but you're adding so much value that they'll keep listening to what you have to say. This is the biggest mistake that people make in online marketing, is they immediately come out as salespeople. They show their whiskers, and the mouse runs from the cat, and the prospect runs from the salesperson. So you want to make sure that you hide your whiskers. During this indoctrination sequence, it's all about all the things you're doing for them, and it's not about your product or what you want to convince them to do. I'm sure anybody who's listening to this call has probably gotten some Facebook message from an anonymous person they never heard of before who started out with, I got a great opportunity I want to tell you about. So they're starting out with, here's what you can do for me. Listen to my opportunity. And you're like, I don't even know who you are. You just sent me a friend request. I accepted your friend request, and immediately you start the sales pitch. Nothing will turn people off because people don't like to be sold, but they do love to buy. So the important part is to sell them, but without being a salesperson. And you do that by adding value and building trust. So that you have this indoctrination sequence that everybody gets when they first sign up. And it could be anywhere from 2 or 3 to as many as maybe 7 or 8 emails that they get. And these are delivered on predefined periods after someone signs up. Or in autoresponder speak, it would be a sequence or an autoresponder sequence or an automation. This is content that is going out based on when someone signed up, not based on what you might be mailing the whole list. And while someone's in an indoctrination sequence, you don't want to send them any other emails. They only get the indoctrination sequence emails because you're trying to maintain this conversation. If they got the emails you were sending the rest of the list that might be to sign up for some program, well, you just showed your whiskers. And of course, you also emailed them twice in a single day, which is generally not a good thing either, especially for a new subscriber. You want this to be set up in a sequence that goes out automatically for every new subscriber. And the thing to remember is that the first email that you send to anyone who joins your list will be the one that gets the highest engagement and open rate. And the reason for that is simple when you think about it. And that is, that's the one time that you know they're sitting at their desk. They just opted in for your list. They get the first email right away, right after. It's going to have a high open rate because they're sitting there. And their interest in your message and your lead magnet is the highest because they just decided to sign up. So you want to always make sure that you take advantage of those first emails because the open rate is only going to go down from there. So make sure that you make a really good first impression. Once you have gone through this indoctrination sequence and they've made it to the end and hopefully opened some of the emails, they're starting to get a feel for who you are and the value you're going to add to them. Now, you have a choice at that point going forward. Some people continue in a sequence. So they keep sending people emails that go out in the same order for everyone. The first 7 days is the indoctrination period, and then on day 8, they get the day 8 email. On day 10, they get the day 10 email. On day 14, they get the day 14 email. So that means that everybody who joins your list goes through the emails in your series in the same order. And that's one way to mail and deepen your relationship with your list, is everybody goes through the same sequence. And maybe you got 50 emails in your sequence out over a 3-month period, spread out, and everybody goes through that. Now, once somebody's finished an indoctrination sequence, though, you have a choice. You could deliver your mails in a different way. And this is how I deliver my mails, incidentally, for most of my stuff. And that is in more of a newsletter method than in a sequence method. So rather, on day 8, when the person finishes the original email, they don't get the same email everybody gets on day 8. Instead, they get whatever email you're mailing your whole list that day. So now you're running an email content calendar that's based on a calendar, not on how many days since they signed up. If you read my emails, which probably most people do, you would realize that that's how I do mine. I write an email today where I talk about whatever it is I want to talk about today. Tomorrow I'll write an email talking about whatever I want to talk about tomorrow. And it will go to the vast majority, if not everyone on my list. And they'll all get it today. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. So you have to look at your situation. Sequences are good because it means that if people are going through the sequence, then as long as you've got more mails in the sequence than they are through the process, then you don't need to worry about if you miss a day mailing, most people are still going to get an email. Only if somebody's at the end of the sequence and are they not going to get a mail because you ran out of emails in the sequence. So it's easier to manage a sequence. It takes a while, obviously, to put all the emails in, but it's easier to manage on an ongoing basis because you don't have to be coming up with new content ideas all the time. When somebody's in an email sequence, then you can program all those emails in advance, and then you know they're going to go out. So when a new person joins your list, you know every email they're going to get in order for the first 60 days they're on their list because you got 60 days worth of emails programmed in. The other advantage that an email sequence has versus doing a timed newsletter format is you know everybody goes through the content in the same order. So if you were trying to help people along the journey and they opted in for a lead magnet, well, then you can teach them things in the emails, knowing where they are in the sequence. If I decide to write an email out today that's about advanced email marketing and somebody just joined my list today and they get that email, then they might be like, whoa, that's like getting into it fast. Just joined. Being able to set the emails up in a sequence to control the message as time goes along is the advantage of a sequence. When you think about part of what your goal here in building this relationship is to educate and motivate people to want to do business with you. Well, when you think about education, most education is done in a particular order, starting with the basics and working up to the more advanced. So an email sequence allows you to do something like that. What an email calendar-based approach does is everybody's getting the same message at the same time. So when I sent out my email today, it went to everyone. So they all got that message today. So it gives you the advantage of being timely. If it's Valentine's Day, you can send an email out that is themed around Valentine's Day because everybody's going to get it on Valentine's Day. You can't put a Valentine's Day email in a sequence because people aren't going to get it all on Valentine's Day. But in a newsletter, you can, on the day, send something specific to that day. So it allows you to take advantage of time themes, things that are going on in your life. So if I'm traveling, I'll typically mention it in my email. I'll mention where I am right now or something that's going on or something that happened to me. And when I do that, it makes it timely because people feel like they were there. They're getting information. I'm kind of surprised sometimes how much people, when I'm speaking to them on the telephone, tell me back about what's going on in my life. And they'll be like, oh, gee, you're back in Canada now. And I'm like, yes, I saw it in your email. You flew back this time? Yep. Or they'll talk to me about my long drives because I talk about them in my emails and say, I'm driving today and here's what I'm working on, etc. And they repeat back. That gives a more personal connection between you and the people on your list than simply everybody getting a series of emails in the same order. So even if you're doing sequence mails, you want to make sure that you share enough personal information so that people get a feeling of a connection with you as an individual and not just with a list. So that's something timed mails can take advantage of. And then the other thing you can do with timed mails is you might be promoting a launch, or you might come out with a promotion or a product or something new that you created. You launched a book. So when you send a mail out to everybody on a particular day, you can also do timely offers. Here's the deal that I have going on, and it's only for the next 2 days. It's a little harder to do that in an email sequence where everybody's at a different spot. And of course, the other thing you can do is you can combine the two. So you can combine the two, and you can pick a day of the week or a couple of days a week where you don't send sequence emails and instead you send timely mails. It's a little harder to set up that way, but it is possible to do it that way. On an ongoing basis, once people have done your indoctrination sequence, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be continuing to educate and motivate them, help them out with their problems, put yourself forward as the guide to help them on their journey, continue to deliver value, and then slipping in those offers of things that you might have for sale or that you want them to take action on. So frequently, if people are subscribed to my emails, I might teach in the body of the mail and then have a PS line offer. PS, I just opened up my new coaching program. If you want to go take a look, click here. It's a way of driving their attention towards something you want them to do, but not making the whole email all about selling. But the reality is, in the cycle of all the emails you send, there will be some that are 80% offer and 20% value, and there will be other ones that are 80% value and 20% offer. Might be some that are 100% one way or another. But you always want to try to add value, and you want to try to balance it heavily so that in the average of the mails, you're probably delivering 5 times as much value as you are asking to do things. The more value you add without asking, the more you are seen as a friend and the less you're seen as a salesperson. So that's important to deepen the relationship. Now, lots of people say, well, regardless, 60 emails in a sequence or writing new emails 3 days a week to communicate with my list, that's a lot of content. But I want to tell you one thing that I want you to think about this way. You can always recycle the content and recycle the messages, because the reality is you're talking to the avatar that you came up with at the beginning. You know what his wants and needs and fears and aspirations are, and you're giving him strategies and helping him to accomplish those things. And most people aren't going to take action on what you tell them to do, so they need to be reminded. It's like my message. I talk a lot to my list and have for years about the fact that they need to build their list. And I keep giving them new reasons as to why it's very important for them to build an audience, why it's very important to focus on learning and not just trying to promote opportunities and make money. These are key messages, key core foundations of my message. There's only so many different ways you can say it. So what you can do is you send an email out to your list, and 6 months goes by, send it again. Because here's what's going to have happened over the last 6 months. First of all, the people who opened it 6 months ago, only maybe 10% of your list opened the mail in the first place, which means 90% never read it. So if they get it again now, it's new to them because they never read it the first time around. Just change the subject line. The other thing to remember is that there's always churn in your list and there's always new people coming in. So in the 6 months since you last sent that mail, there's been a whole bunch of new people joined who didn't see it either. And there's a bunch of people who did see it who have since unsubscribed or are no longer active. When you factor all those things in, you'll probably find that 6 months after you send a message, 95 or greater % of the people who are on your list now never opened that mail. So it's new to them. Once you've got about 6 months worth of content in your core messages, helping people out, to some extent, you can recycle it. You might change some words. Obviously, you might make it relevant to the date. You wouldn't say it's winter if now it's summer. You wouldn't send out a New Year's message in July. So common sense of cleaning them up in order to reuse them. You always want to change the subject line so that it doesn't appear right at the get-go as the same message. You can reuse your content. So if you've got 6 good months worth of content, you've probably got a lifetime worth of good content. And you just recycle the messages with minor changes. And then the other thing you want to do in order to deepen the relationship with your list is you want to give them a chance to interact with you. Ask them to reply to an email. Write them an email. I wrote an email out to a bunch of people the other day where I asked a question. What's the biggest challenge you're now facing in your business? When you ask somebody a question, it's like you want to reply. Or you tell them, please reply back and tell me what the biggest challenge in your business right now is. And when they reply back, now you're in a one-on-one conversation with somebody from your audience, which ideally you want to get in as many of those as you can handle. Give them an opportunity to reply. The other thing you want to work into your series is get them to connect with you on other platforms. So if you have a page on Facebook, send out emails, ask them to go join your Facebook page, subscribe to your YouTube channel, connect with you on Instagram, ask them to reply. Try to get them to connect with you in as many different ways as possible, because that's going to give you other ways to get your message to them. And it's also going to deepen your connection with them when they see you everywhere. That's the ideal. If you want people's attention, the ideal is to be out there so much that everywhere they go, they see you. And that's what you want to shoot for. So connect with them in as many places as you can. And that's how you deepen that relationship. you get personal with them, you add tons of value, you connect with them in as many places, you don't look like a salesperson, you make sure that they see you as a person and not just some spammer or marketer. Make sure you give them lots of ongoing content, even if you have to recycle it, and reach out for them to make a personal connection with you. Now, with regard to frequency, it varies a little depending on the niche that you're in. If you're in the make money online niche, you should probably be mailing them at least 2 to 3 times a week. And the reason is people that are in the marketing niches get a lot of mail. So they're not going to see most of your mails. If you have a 10% open rate on your list, you should probably be mailing them 3, 4, 5 times a week, because 90% of your people aren't seeing the mails anyways. So maybe they'll see the one you sent tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, maybe the one the day after that. If you have a big open rate on your list, if you are in a non-marketing list and you're getting a 30% open rate on your emails, then you probably don't want to mail them as frequently. But the one rule to always remember is you can mail them as frequently as you have something that they see valuable to share. I mean, if somebody was going to send you every day the winning lottery numbers for the next day, you'd want to make sure that you got a daily email from them, right? If it has a lot of value for them, then they won't mind you sending it more frequently. What they mind is that you're mailing them a lot with stuff that they don't connect with. So that's very important. And the other thing to remember about deepening your relationship with your list is that you're only going to develop a deep relationship with a small percentage of the overall number of people who join. Feel totally okay with letting people go, letting them unsubscribe, letting them just disappear, and then deleting their email addresses when they haven't opened a mail in 90 days. Be okay to let the people who do not connect with you go, because what you're trying to do is find your people. Just like any relationship, you don't make deep friendships with every single person you meet. You connect with some people and you don't connect with others. And when you share your information out to your list, what's going to happen is some people are going to connect with you and some people are not going to like you. And that's okay, because you're just trying to find an engaged audience of people who do connect. So it's good to know the ones that don't, and it's okay to let them leave. You want them to leave because you want to focus on the people who want to be there. Always remember that with your relationship with your list is you're trying to find your people. You're trying to talk to them in a way which is going to attract towards you the people that you want to work with and repel away from you the people who you don't want to work with. Using that as an example, a lot of people end up joining my lists that are essentially in the make money online, or, what some people would consider get rich quick kind of thing. But I don't ever talk about get rich quick. I talk about the opposite. I tell them it's a scam. I tell them you can't get rich quick, that you have to build a real business. You're attracting towards you the people you want to work with, and you're repelling away from you the people that you do not want to work with. And that is fine, because you only want to build relationships with the people that you want to work with.